good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different, even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body, because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. Thank you for joining us once again. Today is the 16th of February. The year is 2023 and a Thursday at that, but not just any ordinary Thursday. It's also a public holiday right here in Uganda, so it wouldn't come to me as a surprise if very many of you are actually at home. My name is Philomena Masco. I do have Roberts, I do have Mullen, and of course Felix is joining us as well. If you're wondering why we are celebrating every other day, I always encourage you as a Ugandan to know why you're actually celebrating a public holiday or why a given day is a public holiday. Well, today we get to remember, we get to celebrate the late Saint Janan Luwumo. Now, when we talk about this gentleman, the late Archbishop actually of the Church of Uganda, well, there is quite a lot we can talk about, but the most important thing is looking at ethics, national ethics. This in every way is actually related to why we are celebrating this great Archbishop of the second actually Archbishop of the Church of Uganda, Rwanda, and of course Burundi, not forgetting the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And today's commemoration service is going to be happening in Kitgum, and of course it will be led by the Most Reverend Dr. Kazimba Mugalu. And of course the chief guest is His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and accompanied by very many other dignitaries. And later on, as the show goes by, you will understand why we'll be talking about this great man, a man who exuded a lot of courage, a man who exuded a lot of bravery when it came up to speaking for the truth and by the truth, and also defending the people when it came to the truth. Well, clearly there is quite a lot that we'll be picking from that. But also I need to know what these two gentlemen and Mullen definitely have to celebrate today, and probably a lesson or two they could take away from this great man that we are celebrating today as Uganda. Mullen, good morning.
Yes, a very good morning to you, and I want to say good morning, Uganda. Well, it is a public holiday, but also it is a good day to reflect on what this day means to us. You look at what happened way back, that was 1977, and then you look at today, what we have in 2023, or even talk about the years that have passed. 46 years later, what have we learned? What lessons have we drawn from such a man who stood for the truth? And I think that is what really we should be reflecting on for today. And you look at also the theme talking about united for growth. Like, that's the kind of growth that I would want as Ugandans to look at. And individually, are we able to stand for the truth? And then when it comes to leadership, that is a whole other conversation. But as we celebrate today, I would want us to see whether we still have leadership that will come out and say the truth and stand up for the people, no matter what the repercussions would be. And that is how we could actually get into a good leadership. And we say that we're talking about humanity on such a day. Are we able to uphold such standards that Janan Luwumo laid for us as a country? That's the big question right there, and I think throughout the day we might be able to get some answers. And also at the celebrations, as we reflect on what other Ugandans could contribute to that.
Well, good morning, Felix.
Oh, good morning, Philo. How are you?
I'm all right, I'm great.
Happy Janan Luwumo's Day.
If
anything like that matters. If anything like that is there, but I hope it's there because it's a national celebration. So the thought is that there must be that wish. Well, of course, you did talk about this, and Mullen just did add a bit of soul to it when she did talk about how people should reflect on days like this. But of course, it also brings us a reason to think wise. Again, as Ugandans, we have cluttered a lot of history in regards to martyrdom, if you do take cognizance in that. The Catholic Church, in its own self, they talk about the Uganda martyrs, that is every 3rd of June, it is. The Anglican Church as well has quite a number of martyrs as well. The Muslims have come out to acknowledge that they have a particular number of martyrs they are yet probably to also take through the beatification process, as their religion says. Most recent, we also saw the canonical beatification of the Gildo Irwa and his colleague, the gentleman and the gentleman from the Acholi side. So when as we remember days like Janan Luwum, we also pride in ourselves as Uganda. We have contributed greatly to the spread of religion. As a matter of fact, we have our place high up there. In fact, if you're keen to note, the likes of, when you talk of Uganda matters, the likes of Chizito Muto, Buza Baliao, Gonza, Baga Tozinde, and many, many others. And you read through their stories, their history, their stories are not any different from the modern day matters like Janan Luwum. After all these years, we see a repetition of events and they face courageous people who take them on, and that's why days like this have become quite nautical for us to call upon and celebrate. So Janan Luwum Day is a big deal for Ugandans. However, we'll be having much of this discussion, Philomena, later to try and digest and understand the relevance of these days, modern day martyrdom. How do we find sense? You see, I have a problem with these public holiday and the celebrations, the kind of guests, the themes, well, much that quite challenging though, but it is what it is. Anyway.
It's very challenging, and probably I'll also be sharing with you why I find it a bit challenging later on as we go on. But Robert, good morning.
Good morning to you and of course our viewers and the entire team. Now, you asked a very important question that, well, what lessons do we take from the likes of Janan Lumu, who we are celebrating today? One of the things is that for us who are living today, because we are celebrating a person who was killed 46 years ago on orders of President Idi Amin, one is, we shall all at one time die, but what legacy have you left behind? Most of these matters, we are celebrating them because of their bravery, their courage to stand up for their faith. But Janan Lumu, we are celebrating him because he stood out for the rights of others. He condemned evil that was going on. And today, even when he's gone, we have reasons to celebrate. So on individual merit, on individual basis, what lesson do you pick? How are you living your life as a Ugandan today, when we have so many evils of corruption, we have a lot of moral decadency hovering all over the country? So think about how you would love to be remembered. Are we going to have you in the right books of history or in the wrong books of history? It also brings in the element of tolerance, because nothing that the Archbishop Janan Lumu was talking about that wasn't there. But you see, there was lack of tolerance at that time. So how tolerant are we to even those people, more so now in modern day democracies, that those people that may not perceive or view things as we do, or may condemn various evils, to what extent are we tolerant? I think, to me, those are both at individual level, and also to know that religious leaders should always be able to come out and speak against evils. Idi Amin's regime was a very tough time. There were extra judicial killings. Life had lost value. But coming up as a religious leader, understand, many went to exile. And actually, when you read a lot of literature regarding Archbishop Lumu, many people told him, but why don't you leave Uganda and run away? The man has threatened, anytime you will be killed. He said, I was born here, I'll live, I'll die here, I'll not leave my country, I'll stand out for the rights of others.
Well, while we are at it, of course, later on we'll be really delving so deep into it. But yesterday, the health ministry came out to say that the statistics that are usually, annual statistics that are usually released by Uganda Police, especially when it comes to the accidents that we do get in the country, are actually way below than what actually happens. Why? Because we don't have an integrated system of actually collecting data, especially traffic data. Now, I was just questioning, we are already crying about the statistics that have been availed to us by police and all the other responsible stakeholders. What happens when we actually get this integrated system?
Well, of course, it gets a bit hard, Philomena, and that I have great belief in it, because you find that the data collected, the data that we normally get is probably from known hospitals, but there are cases that don't get to hospitals. You find that police in its own capacity may not even have the coverage to give all the needed. So we are dealing with a bigger problem than what actually is before our eyes or manifests before our eyes. In the same realm, Philomena, we must also acknowledge that the challenge that happens on our roads, the solution doesn't solely lie with police. Police can only do so much.
Yes.
But we can only deal with our own conscience to avoid such victimization. We are a generation that has leaned against being responsible. We don't want to take the blame in our hands, but
yes,
for the people who use the roads, honestly and truly, if you judge yourself, for some of you who drive or ride, how many times have you done the right thing? I see in this country, I have, surprisingly, it's actually the only country so far I've seen, people don't respect robots, or what we call traffic lights. And it is strange, and that stretches from government official cars. The ones that should be giving...
being the most actually taking...
That's the thing.
Yes.
They like, because that's the smallest identity you can give for road users about being sensible. Let me use that word. But clearly, most of them are not sensible, because everyone, even P1 knows that red stands for stop. Orange, get ready. Green, go. Now, you see a full-bodied man or woman, and that's not a big deal for them. And what's more, some of them are driving taxis. It's not just about you, but you're driving about 14, 15 people. And you don't have the brain. Probably you've borrowed it to someone, or you forgot it at home, because those are the simplest things, like the starters for anyone using the road. So when you hear such statistics, and if you want to feel pain, you just go. Now, there are people who drive these big cars. Anyway, I just think most of our Ugandan road users don't move with their brains when they're driving.
There's also an issue of, I think I would want to call them runaway offenders. I don't know how it's termed in police. I've seen people get away in instances where they actually knocked someone or knocked some car, and they're able to run away. I don't know how police is handling that, because what we're aware of is most of these places don't even have cameras. And if they are integrating new systems right now, we need to address that issue, because I've seen it on many occasions. You have someone, before you get, a hold of what their number plates are or who they are, they're actually running away. And maybe the accident was that bad. And in so doing, they end up actually causing an accident somewhere else, because you've disorganized the traffic at that moment, you're trying to run away. And that is how we had the accident, if you remember the accident in Lubaga, about the truck that went ahead to knock the borders. Like, he didn't slow down to address what was there. He just kept on going, and you know how borders also just are attracted to being around, and they couldn't also see wherever they were going. You're causing another accident instead of staying and addressing this. And I think this is something that police should be able to get those statistics, all the systems, and then now they're integrating more cameras. I think they should focus on such offenders, and maybe it goes a certain step into reducing road carnage.
And you know what police calls that? In police traffic language, they call it hit and run. She was knocked by a hit and run motor vehicle, meaning the person knocked and never stopped. So Every weekly press briefing, the traffic department will tell you, registered a number of these accidents, this number were hit and run. But
how are they addressing it?
But one, we must look at also sometimes why this happened. Yes, there is some level of moral decadence we have in our country, but sometimes for these reasons. Today, when a person knocks somebody, of course an accident, either it was preventable or not, we've lost tolerance. They can either leech that person. I don't know if, Molen, you've seen someone who knocks somebody and tries to stop. Sometimes they can leech this person. The would-be thing is, if you're in such a situation, you drive to the nearest police station and report yourself that, hey, I've knocked somebody out of error or something like this at such a place. Because sometimes when you stay, if you use your proper sense of judgment and you see that you can stop, even take this person to hospital, that would be better. But when an accident happens, you must be in your right sense of judgment. You've knocked someone within their area of residence and you stop. If this person has been a fatal accident, Ugandans, there's something, you may end up being leached or killed. Another life is lost there. So sometimes that is why people run. But also there are those that are very insensitive, that don't want to take responsibility of what happened, and they just run forever. So those two issues. But you mentioned something very important, that how can police track that? Well, I hope when we have the number plates, they talked about
the ones with the microchip.
With the microchip, and
yes.
Because those, it would be easy to, at such a time, someone was knocked by a hit and run. So let's try and see at that particular time which motor vehicles were there and track back. Because today what we are doing, basically it will also be, even cameras do a post-mortem, you know. Yeah. They don't prevent, but they help move back and see who could have gone. So I have hope in those number plates. I've not seen any yet, but I have hope that once they are here, they will help fight incidents of hit and run vehicles.
But also, if you notice that Uganda road abuse is very cheap, and that I've said time and again, and I'll say again. That's why you see a lot of vagabond behaviors on roads. You see lousiness, because it's very cheap to get over a traffic offense in this country. And what's the cost of hitting traffic lights? How much do they charge you? What's the cost if they get you without a 80,000, then 150? Like, people don't feel, there's no deterrency in the punishments that come with abuse of road usage. So people feel that, and also the people who don't actually pay, the system is easy to beat. Someone find here in Papula Vitano. How does that even happen? And they're still driving on the roads.
Accumulating every now and then.
And they're still driving, by the way. Like, like,
but you know, the money keeps
so
increasing
passive.
As when you let it stay.
But that's the thing. It doesn't scare people.
We need the express penalty schemes again also incorporated in the traffic. I think everywhere, not just only traffic. I mean, we already see
it must be scary enough
that has been incorporated with the environmental regulation. So maybe we also need it, even if, because I know it could have been there, but also how is it implemented? So we need the implementation process to actually be very, very top key. So again, we still have a lot of issues that we need to be able to sort out. Well, we'll look into the local stories now and the international stories as well.
Well, we'll begin with issues of upper land, and that is in Adjumani, where we have government has ordered all encroachers on Zoka Forest Reserve and the contested upper land to vacate within 90 days. This is contained in a cabinet decision communicated by the Prime Minister and the leader of government business, Robina Nabanja, while meeting leaders from Adjumani district at Adjumani district headquarters. The 40 square kilometer of the contested upper land is being claimed by Adjumani district in West Nile and Amur in northern Uganda, as well as the Uganda Wildlife Authority, or as part of the East Madi Game Reserve.
Now, President Yoweri Museveni has challenged leaders of people with disabilities to mobilize the people they lead to actively get involved in government programs of wealth creation. The president's message was delivered by the Prime Minister Robina Nabanja at the closure of the 10-day training for over 330 leaders of the peoples with disabilities from northern and western region of Uganda. The training took place at the National Leadership Training Institute, Nali, in Chankwanzi district, and is organized by the State House.
Moving on, the Ministry of Education and Sports has committed to investigating all sorts of moral decay in schools, and those found culpable will be charged with exploitation of learners. The Minister, Janet Kataha Museveni, while commissioning the construction of Grace House Dormitory at King's College, Budo, expressed disappointment of some education stakeholders for neglecting their role of moral stewardship in schools.
Now, lawyers of legislators Alan Sewanyana, Muhammad Segirinya have expressed their concerns over the process of bail granted to their clients, which accords them leave to matter, which leaves the matter hanging in question and their safety whereabouts. Now, this follows the release of the two legislators on Monday, the 13th of February, on a cash bail of 20 million each, and in the High Court of Masaka.
We're looking at the international stories. Newly released footage shows wreckage of the unsinkable Titanic. Now, out of the gloom of ocean depths, it suddenly appeared before the oceanographers, an expanse of steel dotted with rivets and potholes, forming the remains of the infamous unsinkable ocean liner, the Titanic. On Wednesday, a video of one of the earliest visits to the Titanic's deep-sea wreckage was released to the public on YouTube, offering 80 minutes of uncut footage showing the ship as explorers would have seen it back in 1986. The RMS Titanic was on its maiden voyage from Southampton in the United Kingdom on April 15, 1912, when it struck an iceberg on the way to New York City in the United States. The collision would be fatal. The largest ocean liner of its time, the Titanic was considered to be a state-of-the-art ship with watertight compartments that could be sailed if disaster struck. This and other innovations led its parent company to insist the ship will not go down even after its employees lost contact with the damaged ocean liner. Of the more than 2,200 people who boarded the Titanic, an estimated 1,500 died as the ship sank into the Atlantic Ocean. Now, 6 Russian balloons were spotted over Kiev, and most were shot down after being engaged by air defenses, the Ukrainian capital's military administration said. The balloons may have been carrying corner reflectors and reconnaissance equipment, but officials did not specify when they flew over the capital, although air alerts were issued in Kiev on Wednesday. According to information that is now being clarified, these were balloons that move in the air under the propulsion of wind, the military administration wrote on the Telegram messaging app. The purpose of launching the balloons was possibly to detect and exhaust our air defenses. Shortly before the announcement, Ukrainian Air Force spokesperson Yuri Ihnat said Russia, which invaded Ukraine in February of last year, could be using balloons in a new drive to preserve its stocks of reconnaissance drones.
Now, back in Africa, 8 Croatians facing child trafficking charges in Zambia were granted bail on Tuesday following their arrest last week while trying to leave the South African nation. The charges allege that on December 7th last year, the 4 couples acted together with a Zambian immigration officer to try to traffic 4 children from the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo. The group said they illegally adopted the children aged between 1 and 3 years, but the Zambian authorities have accused them of trafficking the minors. The prosecution had opposed the bail application, arguing that the 8 were flight risks, but Magistrate Jennifer Biala said nothing excluded them from seeking bail if all conditions were met. And scientists studying the Antarctica's vast Arctic glacier, nicknamed the Doomsday Glacier, says warm water is seeping into the weak spots, threatening its demise and a massive sea rise. The Doomsday Glacier, which is roughly the size of Florida, represents more than half of a meter of global sea level rise potential and could destabilize the neighboring glaciers that could cause a further 3-meter rise. As part of the international What is Glaciers collaboration, the biggest field campaign ever attempted in the Antarctica, a team of 13 scientists from the United States and United Kingdom spent about 6 weeks on the glacier in the late 2019 and early 2020. Using an underground robot vehicle known as IceFin, morning data and sensors, they monitored the glacier's grounding line, where ice slides off the glacier and meets the ocean for the first time. In one of the 2 papers published on Wednesday in the journal Nature, led by Cornell University-based scientist Brittany Skidmith, researchers found warmer water was making its way into the crevices and other openings known as terraces, causing sideway melt of 30 meters or more per year.
Top stories in the dailies. The New Vision this morning. First Lady warns against homosexuality. Ministry investigates Bodo social media reports. And still, police rescues 5 kidnapped pupils. And they're also giving you the life and times of Janani Luwom. And also public varsities to get 150 billion Uganda shillings for facelift. All of that in the New Vision this morning.
Well, in the Daily Monitor, Philo, the big headline, woman appeals against fine for refusing to marry. Publisher is going to be giving court her grounds as to why. But Museveni receives credentials of 7 new envoys, and also NSSF flies staff to Dubai for team building, and Karamoja MPs turn heat on minister over relief items, and new relationship pull out today. If you put it in the work, you can have a blissful relationship. I don't know how true that is. People have put work, my dear. They have put their life.
Well, we'll be talking about that probably as the week goes by. But for now, I know that Robert has something to tell us this morning.
Well, it's all about your health. I have Hallelujah Tamarind drink, Hallelujah Ginger tea, and Hallelujah Banana juice drink. These are immune boosters at just 1,500.
Well, it's a Throwback Thursday, and of course we are still celebrating a great man, a man of value, a man of truth, a man who could actually stand up for the rest of the people in the community, in the society, to make sure that development is for everybody. Well, when we get back, we'll be discussing this great man. Who is he? Why are we celebrating him today? Of what relevance is he when we look at the historical times, but also the current times? Good morning. Uganda returns shortly.
Mixology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Hallelujah from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. Thank you for joining us once again. Today is the 16th of February. The year is 2023. And a Thursday at that, but not just any ordinary Thursday. It's also a public holiday right here in Uganda, so it wouldn't come to me as a surprise if very many of you are actually at home. My name is Philomena Masco. I do have Roberts, I do have Mullen, and of course Felix is joining us as well. If you're wondering why we are celebrating every other day, I always encourage you as a Ugandan to know why you're actually celebrating a public holiday, or why a given day is a public holiday. Well, today we get to remember, we get to celebrate the late Saint Janani Luwum. Now, when we talk about this gentleman, the late Archbishop actually of the Church of Uganda, well, there is quite a lot we can talk about, but the most important thing is looking at ethics, national ethics. This in every way is actually related to why we are celebrating this great Archbishop of the second Archbishop of the Church of Uganda, Rwanda, and of course Burundi, not forgetting the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And today's commemoration service is going to be happening in Kitgum, and of course it will be led by the Most Reverend Dr. Kazimba Mugalu. And of course the chief guest is His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and accompanied by very many other dignitaries. And later on, as the show goes by, you will understand why we'll be talking about this great man, a man who exuded a lot of courage, a man who exuded a lot of bravery when it came up to speaking for the truth and by the truth, and also defending the people when it came to the truth. Well, clearly there is quite a lot that we'll be picking from that. But also I need to know what these two gentlemen and Mullen definitely have to celebrate today, and probably a lesson or two they could take away from this great man that we are celebrating today as Uganda. Mullen, good morning.
Yes, a very good morning to you, and I want to say good morning, Uganda. Well, it is a public holiday, but also it is a good day to reflect on what this day means to us. You look at what happened way back, that was 1977, and then you look at today, what we have in 2023, or even talk about the years that have passed. 46 years later, what have we learned? What lessons have we drawn from such a man who stood for the truth? And I think that is what really we should be reflecting on for today. And you look at also the theme talking about united for growth. Like, that's the kind of growth that I would want as Ugandans to look at. And individually, are we able to stand for the truth? And then when it comes to leadership, that is a whole other conversation. But as we celebrate today, I would want us to see whether we still have leadership that will come out and say the truth and stand up for the people, no matter what the repercussions would be. And that is how we could actually get into a good leadership. And we say that we're talking about humanity on such a day. Are we able to uphold such standards that Janan Womb laid for us as a country? That's the big question right there, and I think throughout the day we might be able to get some answers. And also at the celebrations, as we reflect on what other Ugandans could contribute to that.
Well, good morning, Felix.
Oh, good morning, Philo. How are you?
I'm all right, I'm great.
Happy Janan Womb's Day. If
guess
anything like that matters, if anything like that is there, but I hope it's there because it's a national celebration. So the thought is that there must be that wish. Well, of course, you did talk about this, and Mullen just did add a bit of soul to it when she did talk about how people should reflect on days like this. But of course, it also brings us a reason to think wise.
This is Good Morning Uganda. Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Get away with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transactions. Dial star 165 star 5 star 3 hash to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body, because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Accessing your contacts the old way.
accessing your contacts with the My Airtel app. You have the power in your pocket. The power to access your favorite contacts. Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Get away with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transaction. Dial star 165 star 5 star 3 hash to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
Well, 5 minutes past 7 a.m. It's Good Morning Uganda, and the day is 16th of February 2023, a very special day when we get to commemorate the late Saint Janani Luwum. And he was the second Archbishop of the Church of Uganda. We're looking at Rwanda, we're looking at Burundi, and also Boga Zaire. Boga Zaire is actually the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So the man had really quite a huge responsibility. And today we are commemorating him, and the celebrations and the commemoration service is happening in Kitgum district. Of course, it's being led by the Most Reverend Dr. Stephen Kazimba Mugalu, and of course the chief guest is His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Today the theme is United for Service and Growth. Now we can say a lot about some of the great things that he did, especially when it comes to ethics nationally, what he believed in, what he stood for, the truth, and protecting people. And again, actually some of his actions are reflected in our national ethical value policy. And clearly there are quite some 10 points out there that were pointed again, which we'll be going through much later on. But Felix, this morning's discussion, of course, in light of that, there are two categories of people I want for us to look at and probably make comparisons and see what exactly it is that they're doing versus what this great man did. We are looking at clerics, the leaders of the church, and in all religious denominations. We are not picking out one because we believe that religion is religion. There are certain standard beliefs we do have that clearly are good for the entire nation. But also looking at our leaders, exactly what is happening, what are they emulating from all of this, and also looking at modern day martyrdom, the relevance of it. Is there anything that we can pick from it, or is it doing things as per the standards as it should be doing? Of course, all of this again, like I said, reflecting on the late. Well, starting off maybe with our church leaders, Felix. I mean, we are both very passionate about the role that is played by our clerics here in the region, especially when it comes to all factors, social factors, economic factors, political factors. They have a very huge and big role to play. At the end of the day, we have seen them coming to stand against some of the beliefs they want to encourage for other leaders and people to take on. But sometimes, again, we have questioned their involvement in some of these things that happen every other day. How are they doing?
Well, I'll be honest with you, and probably that does take in the two of us. We may not be in the best position.
Yes.
To discuss the performance of our clerics. However, we shall give our honest opinion that is backed by relevant
evidence and
proof and the atmospheric existence of how they do practice their vocation.
Yes.
we must, at the entry point, we must agree that celebrations like this give true cognizance to the reality that comes with the life of vocationers, of vocation life. When you read through the history and listen to the people who are related to Jan and Luwum, you notice that there's a lot to take home. Again, cut out for a particular vocation.
Yes.
Jan and Luwum lived a large life, yet fulfilled. And I'll tell you why I say this as I come to the point that you did ask me. They talk about the time when there was turmoil. And that was definitely the fear to mention that there was political misbehavior.
Yes.
By politicians. I don't know why people fear to say the reality of that. There was political misbehavior by politicians. Then, the government was struggling with political stability. As I've always told you, one of the biggest challenges nationally is gripping a country that has no grip on politics, that has no certainty of its political posture. This is what happens. What we saw to the likes of Jan and Luwum must happen. Because amongst the millions of people, there shall be those that will stand out against some of the political methods of political assertion or political identity. The late His Excellency Idi Amin Dada was trying to find stance in his political identity, later on also grappling with how he could hold stiff against his political position. Now, any other person who would come seemingly against those lines was to him an enemy of his expectations, political expectations. And unfortunately, the likes of the late bishop fell in that disorder.
Yes.
However, it is also important for us to interrogate what exactly led to this, that causes a celebration. After many years, we find sense in celebrating that this gentleman died for. What is it? Because in there is the gist for us to put on a balance, whether we are still living the trueness of ministry as ministers, we shall see, or we have long since gotten in bed with those things that such people like Jan and Luwum stood for. Among very many other people, if you've been bothered to read about people who always stand out internationally,
yes,
there's something unique. When you look at people like Mother Teresa, and the various, let me not even pick out Mother Teresa, you go to the likes of now Saint Pope John Paul, you look at the likes of Saint Stephen, the first martyr, because of all these people, there's something unique for us to pick out to have this discussion as we celebrate Jan and Luwum Day. Today, after all these many years, why is it important for us to sit and think back that are we still the church that is based and founded on the values that we're called to? One, this gentleman now being celebrated had about 4 or 5 characteristics we shall focus on. One, there's an aspect of being charismatic.
Yes.
The charism. It is one thing to know the truth. It's another thing to say it. It's another thing on top of saying it to confront the offender. And it becomes worse also when you add what we call in which times. You see a lot of these white people shouting in Europe. They know no one can do anything. That's why they shout all over. Someone will abuse the president tomorrow because they know, I mean, you get the point. So it doesn't make news when you shout where shouting is allowed.
Because that's what everybody is.
I mean, it's okay.
It's okay.
And that's what I'm saying. We must put focus on these guys. That strength what drove him to say the things he said, to do the things he did, in the times he knew were not favorable for him to do all those things, but yet he chose to do them. That's why we celebrate people like that. Conviction is one of the reasons why someone will do something against all the given or normal odds.
Yes.
Because they are convinced that that they believe in, that they say, that they know is ultimately the truth. How many of our religious leaders today possess a resilience of religious conviction?
Yes. That they will come out, stand there and talk to whoever.
As long as what they are saying is true.
Yes.
That must also be what forms. Because you're not just going to come out and open your mouth because everyone has to talk. But what are you saying? Does it directly feed into the line of the conviction you carry as a minister of church? What do we see that today? Our viewers, my sister Philomena, you can tell us. How are we standing in that line?
We should use that as a benchmark.
Because, and you can, as I told you, we're not going to sit today in the confines of trying to be judge, judicial officers, but let's look at the reality.
Yes.
How many institutions in terms of ministry have come out to confront with that conviction? And you don't have to attack anyone. You just have to be straight and head on, sober about the things that affect the flock. How many? Conviction. Secondly, leadership. One of the biggest challenges, you can talk about all the biggest achievements, nevertheless, let me use that. I think the biggest achievements was the ability of the person we are celebrating today, Janan Luwum, to spiritually steer well the provincial, actually it was the ecclesiastical province,
yes,
which did include not only Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, and the Greater Boga Zaire. Being the second black bishop to take charge of that province, and the most profound,
yes,
up till today, till when they came and cut out every country to come and get their ecclesiastical provinces. Now, until that, leadership is key. And this is a skill we must learn as ministers. For example, because when you're at the helm of something, whatever institutions, you have a duty you owe to the people you lead. Sadly, the burden is even heavier for the leader than the led.
You know, I've always questioned if our leaders, and by the way, right from the smallest unit, if they understand what leadership actually is, how big of a burden it is. It's a very good thing, and it's no wonder that people will say leadership is a calling from God. You don't just get to be a leader like that. You may think you are a leader when you're actually not a leader. Do our leaders understand the value?
This one just tied. Uganda, let me just say it direct translation. They tie themselves
on leadership.
On things. That's the thing.
Okay.
Because leadership, you must be cut out for it spiritually, physically, mentally. I don't know. It must be
every aspect.
There's a calling attached to leadership.
Yes.
And most when it comes to church, that's why a couple of weeks ago we did a case of one of the preachers here who I think raped, is it a Latvian nation?
Yes.
Now, this guy was 28. From what was reported in the papers, 28. And there's nothing against being 28. But when it is about leadership, there are many values and characters that you must carry to lead. There's something called formation. Formation. When you look at the story of Janan Luwum, actually, if you're not fear to read, they tell you about how this man went through all the right stages to become who he became.
Yes.
Leadership. He led the church, he stewarded, he served the Lord he believed in as a leader. when you look at current day martyrdom, as you did put it, and this is a question for all of us, we are not judging anyone. For some of you Christians, wherever you are, Muslims, wherever you are, whichever church, there are many religions in Uganda.
There are very
Just
many,
so you know, madam,
yes, but we can't even put them
there
out.
are Mormons, there are Baha'is, there are Hindu.
Yes.
In whichever religion you subscribe to, do you feel leadership? Because that's a core of the calling of any minister. Do you feel you're led? Do you feel you are there's someone ahead of you? When even you go to the great scriptures, both when you go to the Muhammadan and you come to the Jesus, there's an aspect of leadership. That's why the Bible talks about my flock. There's a shepherd, and their
sheep. Yes.
Well, why do you think there's that imagery that the Bible brings out? And the Bible later on says that respect leaders of the seasons or times, because no leadership is not an ordinance of God. There's an element of leadership in ministry. You can't be a leader of a church and you're hiding your tail in your legs.
You can morph into whatever is happening around you. Yes.
Let me tell you, and this is simple advice. You can't be a leader and you have nothing to say about anything.
Yes.
Because people look up to you. Just like, and this is the same thing just like in families. You can't have a father and they see a cockroach. What is leadership? That's why even if you're a man, there are many who fear cockroaches, but they'll say,
but they're taking a leadership role in
at least
that.
they're directing someone.
Yes.
Or they'll send someone. Philo, like there is that. So leadership is key in terms of ministry, and this is why one of the reasons, because when you are a leader, people are counting on your counsel.
Yes.
People will count on your counsel. That's why there's a big role of church in national building. Remember in the times of COVID, that's why we said no. The government was like, we cannot just, people are not listening enough to government officials. How do we involve some of these leaders, the church leaders?
Yes. I mean, we have days,
There's
national prayer days. We
exactly.
have
it is
to
in cognizance of that.
Yes.
So leadership is a skill today we celebrate as we celebrate the likes of Janan Luwum. Now, third, something called human rights. And this is seen in two folds. One, on the side of the people in power, it's important for us to pick a leaf today. Let me ask you a question, and I hope this doesn't offend nobody. Do you think if Janan Luwum said these things that he said then, today, would it be the same environment? Because that's the yardstick for us to check where we stand as a country.
Yes.
Away from people being invited for these days, mass. There's a lot of music, singing, nice dressings, but that's the biggest contemplation as we celebrate this day after all these many years. What has changed? Is the situation any better? This is a two-way thing. Let's not hide away from, do we still fight, or are we still challenged as a country with upholding human rights? Because if we can't answer that question, this celebration is as good as useless. The modern day martyrdom.
Well, there you
okay? Because that's a question we must answer. Now, if you say those words today, would it be the same thing? One would tell you, no. People have the freedom to speak. Opinions are led.
And express themselves about different things.
There has been a tremendous change from what then was and what is today. Without due or fear to regard the fact that there are challenges in human rights that we have consistently addressed time and again. But do we have the space? And by the space, I mean, we may be here condemning religious leaders for not saying anything, but do they have the platform to have these discussions that touch their flock, that touch the nations? As we celebrate Janan Luwum Day, how do we make things better? It's a big question for us.
And again, it's not for only the clerics, it's for everybody.
No, of course,
everybody
for
who is
all of us to
celebrating
pick,
this. Yes, but also, now that we are, we've talked about the religious leaders, I want to look at our leaders here. And here's one thing. Here in Uganda, the Archbishop Janani Luwum is a reflection of there are 10 national ethic values that are embedded in the National Ethical Value Policy, which again was brought into play back in 2003. And they look at 10 values. I'm just going to read them out, and I would love for us to make comparison. Our leaders, how are they following up on these 10 values? Number 1, we look at respect for humanity and environment. Number 2, we do have honesty, uphold and defend the truth at all times. Number 3, justice and fairness in dealing with others. Number 4, hard work and self-reliance. Number 5, integrity, moral uprightness and sound character. We do have creativity and innovativeness. We do have social responsibility, looking at social harmony, national unity, and finally, the national consciousness and patriotism, which for me is actually one of the things that gets me thinking. National consciousness and patriotism. When you look at our leaders, the decisions they make, the moves they make, the type of leadership, their leadership styles, do they reflect all of this?
And I want
because
to
this
say
is a national policy we are looking at. It's not something we are making up.
it affects us as a country.
Yes.
One of the things we must take clear, true conscious about as in relation to those things you've said, we need to deal with this thing called the blanket responsibility called government. Going forward,
we need to
individual
yes.
responsibility.
Yes.
When you look at what's happening today in the papers that we did, just me and you, there was a story about how a particular group of employees in this country do their team building in Dubai.
Yes.
Now, this government is struggling with increasing its tourism numbers. We are struggling with having some fare.
We are trying so hard to promote domestic tourism. Yes.
Sitting in an office paid by Ugandans, and in their right senses, for them the place they want to do team building, they want to fly and take this money away. Now, we need to look at something called, where is our patriotic stance as individuals? Because this is, let's not even, I don't want to talk about it nationally. This is an individual thing. Because patriotism is the great display of your affection, love, and tenderness towards your country. And this must only manifest through the things you believe in, the things you do, and how you treat your fellow men. We have seen God has blessed us. We have taken some time without having any major strikes lately. We have and we bless God for that, because every time these things happen, people lose businesses, people die, people are shot, stray bullets, what. God has blessed us. It has been, I think, about a year now without some of these coercive, and we thank God. But when these things happen, you want to ask yourself, are these countrymen?
Well, we'll be continuing with this conversation, of course, trying to analyze and see how our leaders are doing in terms of these values. But also, just to remind you that the celebrations are happening in Kitgum district. And of course, our very own Jordan Lokomwa is already on the ground. And he should be telling us any minute now what is happening, how are the preparations going. We need to have a feel of what's happening over there. And already, as you can see, that road marked the Janani Luwum Road. There is actually a very good and intimate relationship between this gentleman and also this specific district where we chose to have the celebrations today. So Jordan, any minute now, will be joining us and telling us what is this relationship? How are the people feeling, especially in line to these celebrations? Jordan, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Philomena, your team, and our viewers on UBC TV. Yes, we are coming to you live from Kitgum town, a very beautiful, well-planned, clean town, where we are coming to you live from at this particular moment. And as you can see in my background, I'm just standing in a junction that takes us to the Janan Luwum Road, and I'm going to cross and at least talk about him and the day on the very road that was named after the great man, Janan Luwum, that Uganda is celebrating today. So Janan Luwum is a man born in this area at a place called Muchwini, where we are heading to immediately after this brief broadcast of giving you an update. That's where we are heading to be part of the celebrations, the national celebration, international celebrations of the great man, Janan Luwum, who was killed, according to the history that we have all read. He was killed in 1977. He was arrested in 1977 and killed for having tried to advise the government then in Uganda, led by General Idi Amin in Uganda. He was born in 1924 in a place called Muchwini, where I said we are heading to, and he became bishop of the ecclesiastical province of Uganda, which now at that time encompassed Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Boga Zaire then. So in 1977, he disagreed with government on issues to do with human rights violations and how the ill management of the nation Uganda, and that led to the path to his death, and that's how we lost him. He is a saint, as we now know. His statue is at Westminster Church, Abbey, and in Uganda we celebrate the 16th of February in memory of him. I'm standing the road that slopes here. This is Uhuru Street, and behind me the road that slopes, as you can see, is Janan Luwum. So that's how big the man we are celebrating today is. Yes, Philomena.
Jordan, I love the fact that you're talking about, clearly there is quite a relationship between Janan and this very location, but also zeroing down to the people. Do they understand, aside from seeing a few things, seeing road signs and all of that, do they understand who this man and also relating it to their locality and what exactly he did for them?
Yes, you see, I talk to some people. You see, when you arrive in an area, you mingle with people around and at least talk to a few about the day. Many of the young people in this place have read about him. Some have even traveled to Muchwini to see the place of the man whose name they hear internationally and the history they hear about him. So they really appreciate the day. So where we are heading to at his burial grounds, where the celebrations are going to be, we shall even talk to the youngest and the old to get to know what they feel about the day and the man, Janan Luwum. So at least they appreciate him, they even know him, and they know some history about him. But I'll get live interviews where we are going to Muchwini and get to know more about what the people, the locals, at all different levels of age, think about the man and what they know about him.
All right, Jordan. So what time do we expect the celebrations to kick off?
According to the program, at exactly 10, we expect a service that will be led by His Grace, Dr. Stephen Samuel Kazimba Mugaru, the Archbishop of the Church of Uganda, and the guest of honor will be General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, and that means plus so many other dignitaries that will grace the event. So we shall have the service and other activities that are carried on in memory of the great man, Jakalia Janan Luwum.
Well, thank you so much, Jordan. Of course, we'll be waiting in for some more updates as the events go by, and definitely will be...
Just to give you a brief about Kitgum, the district.
Yes.
Yes, Kitgum, the district where we are, it's among the 7 districts that mark, one would call northern Uganda and that part of Acholi. They were once, after independence, it was Acholi district. From there, it went to, it was divided into 2. That is in 1974. There was Acholi West and it was part of Acholi East. Then, when the decentralization came in, it was carved out as a district of its own and named after the biggest town of the area, which is Kitgum, where I'm standing right now, and that's where we are. That's the kind of the district. 80% of the people here are agriculturalists, according to the information on the district's internet pages. 80% of the people in the area are agriculturalists, but there are other businesses that people carry out, especially here in the main town. As you can see, the street that slopes, that's Uhuru Street, as my cameraman is showing you. It has a lot of buildings, shops, shopping areas, schools. We saw bomber grounds, with hotels, like where we slept. So that's the kind of district that it is, and people are excited. My cameraman is showing you some 3 schoolgirls. Today is a public holiday. There are no schools that are open, but they must be traveling to Mchwini to be part of the event. So the question that you have asked earlier, whether people know about Janan Luwum, the answer is they're walking. Those 3 young ladies must be heading to a point where they will set off to go to Mchwini and be part of the activities to celebrate Janan Luwum. So Kitgum is part of the 7 districts of northern Uganda, and the area called Acholi, the sub-region called Acholi, is where we are. So that's where Janan Luwum was born and buried, and that's where we are going to celebrate him today. And UBC TV, as usual, will be live.
All right, and of course we'll be very happy to have you. But also I do understand there were celebrations, there were actually preparations or celebratory preparations that happened at the specific location yesterday. Could you take us through what happened over there?
I beg your pardon, celebrations where?
There were certain preparations that did happen on a location yesterday, the preparations. What exactly was happening there, of course, as they were planning for today? What happened over there?
Okay, Philomena, I'll give you, of course, here the feel in the town. Security is a little beefed up, a little better than the ordinary, but we are 23 kilometers away from Mchwini, where the event is going to be held. So I'll give you that update when on location at Mchwini. We spent the night in Kitgum town, but of course we have gathered some information. Security is beefed there, because they expect His Excellency the President, the Archbishop, a number of other bishops from all over the country and beyond. So the update I can give you about the preparations is a beef up of security and cleanliness of the whole area, as you have seen the roads, and more to that.
Well, thank you so much, Jordan. We will leave you now, and probably we'll be joining you much later on. Thank you for the updates.
You're welcome, Philomena. All the best.
All right, thank you. Well, there you go. Preparations have already been done, and the main celebrations will be starting at 10. And we'll be very excited to get you all these updates, giving you a live feed right from location. But as we're coming to the end of this discussion, I don't know, Felix, what would be the takeaway for everybody as a Ugandan, as a leader, a political leader, as a church leader, and any other kind of leader that we may be probably excluding out of this conversation and discussion? What is their takeaway from all of this?
Well, of course,
because unlucky for them, this is a man who was an all-rounder. I could say that. Yeah. Yes, so it's something for them they have to.
I think there's a lot that deserves attention, and I'll start with church. There's a lot that deserves attention. Church cannot be a private business matter. Let me put it that way. We can't leave church to be, we're like, whoever can do. Church can't be like that. And this is a big struggle, though, because every person who thinks can do church, they are inspiration by either the devil or the Spirit of God is so strong. Like they normally say, if you want to find a person who has the supporters of, if you want to find people who are so resilient, go meet people of apostles and prophets. We have seen in this country where people are idolizing the ministers. So I think we have left church, and this is our general problem as a country. We have left church to the private sector. Like anyone can do church under the guise of anointment, simanyi mafuta, what, and all this paraffin, whatever they call it. Like, people think they can do church. Anyone can do church. And that's a big challenge of the 21st century. Everyone, and that's something a country must consolidate. Other countries have put in some limitations. And this is spiritual. People will pretend that you cannot regulate church. No, you must, because of the character of the people. You've seen today, priests are fathers, bishops are adulterers. You get these things.
Yes.
Pastors are rapists. Now, don't you think people, we need to have a discussion. I will celebrate days like this. Church has gone stray. Church has gone astray. It's off the purpose that the foundation was. It's no longer a running solace for people. Rather, people are running from churches now
Instead of running to
elsewhere.
churches.
The reverse is the truth.
Yes.
So when it's not enough for us to celebrate, and I have a problem with people who think these days are just about celebrations. We need to use them. In fact, I don't know what Lucilica is in English. We need to have some sort of Lucilicas before some of these days. We need to draw back, meditate. Because people here, it's occasional. Do you have a good suit, Philomena? Yes.
Let's go.
Where is the function? Between something which Jordan was saying, but somewhere. Let's go. It's about who has a good suit. Do the people when do we meditate about days like this so we can find the relevant importance in them? There are people who are going to attend. Yesterday they were stealing government money, but the officials
they are in the process of stealing.
Some of them are going to steal even today.
They're already in the process while they are.
There's a minister, I hear the court relatives saying iron sheets for aid. That was meant to go to, I think, Karamoja or something.
Region, yes.
But you may find also that person there seated. Now, we need to meditate upon these days, not just for who has a better suit, who has a better eyelashes. Now, even when people grow up, there's now the struggle.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's discussion. But of course, we have to look at some of the top stories in the Daily Nation and the Citizen. Daily Nation: how Israel hackers meddled in elections, and cough syrup from snail slime on the way. Kenyan researchers ban midnight oil. And looking at police raid Matiang'i city home amid row over search warrants. Raila's purge on Azimio rebels. And looking at the education sector, parents call for crisis talks over junior high. The Citizen: why you could pay less for data soon. Okay. No end to tourism musical chairs. Local manufacturers optimistic about the AFCFTA. And of course, giving you some more news from the health sector, how cost-effective measures have lowered child mortality. Citizen and the Daily Nation for you this morning. And of course, you can grab yourself some of our local papers, Daily Monitor and the New Vision. Mullen is coming in with weather and climate. Good morning.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Hallelujah Ginger Tea drink and Hallelujah Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Hallelujah Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Hallelujah from all shops around.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Get away with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transactions. Dial star 165 star 5 star 3 hash to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
Certainly it would have made his famous father proud. And the 18-year-old Gambian left foot on the left foot. Oh my God! The penalty area. That is sensational. The Tunisian defense have been caught out. Caught cold. It's a brilliant little.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good morning, Uganda, and right now we want to take you through the traffic updates, get on the roads, and we see which areas actually were good in terms of traffic and those that you might need to look out for. Now we'll be looking at the side of Nakawa, also the side of Chireka. If you're using those roads towards town, you might want to know that some of these roads actually do have clear traffic. We're looking at Chireka Road right now. If you're coming all the way from there, and also if you're also joining in using Chinawataka Road, looks like that is clear for you joining into town, and that is indicated by the green lines right there. But also Chireka Road, that is over towards Chambogo as you head into town, that looks to have quite a bit of good traffic this morning, indicated by the green lines as well. And you also look at Ntinda Road. That road seems to be clear for this morning. You're looking at mostly Naguru, Katalima Road. Those look to be quite clear as you head into town. And of course, a lot has to do with the fact that it is a public holiday and most people are not really on the road. Now, same as you head into town, that is all the way towards Magambo Road. That looks to be quite clear. Just a few distances where you have a little bit of traffic, but also that gets you into quite clear roads into town. Now, if you look at also the roads connecting in from the Kampala Northern Bypass towards town, we're looking at quite clear traffic for this morning. There are no intense areas that might delay you if you're headed into town, except we're seeing a few traffic areas that is across Gayaza Road. If you're heading into town, that is towards Makere, we do have a few traffic areas right there, quite intense, but also that does clear as you head away from that. Also looking at Binaisa Road, Yusufure Road, that seems to be quite clear. for this morning, but also if you're using that is the Bombo Road, it looks like there is much traffic right there. For those heading out of town, there is quite some traffic building up. You might want to avoid that and probably use Benaisa Road into Yusufure if you're joining town. Now also we want to take a look at how the weather is looking like for this morning. We'll be tapping in from our satellites, and that is over Uganda. We're looking at mostly a cloudy morning starting off for the Lake Victoria Islands. We do have a rainy system that is starting to develop over Lake Victoria, and that is where we do expect to have some rains coming in. We're talking about the area indicated, that is by the red and darker colors right there over the islands of Lake Victoria. So that is the system that is most likely to bring us rains, already headed eastwards, so meaning that it could be bringing us rains especially towards areas of Tororo, Jinja over there, and we could be looking at quite a rainy morning for you. And also much of that is also towards southwestern Uganda. We do have those darker colors across areas of Mbarara, meaning that even right now as we speak, that is quite cloudy. We do expect that rains will be coming through that, and it looks like it is headed westward, so most likely even areas around Kabale, Kisoro, Fort Portal, we could be having a little bit of rains developing for today. Now that is quite interesting because we have had continuous dry conditions over there, and right now we're seeing a little bit of change in terms of wet weather activities expected for today. But also same goes for the eastern side of Lake Victoria, Tororo, Jinja, Iganga. That area has been quite dry, and we're expecting to have a little bit of relief. That is, if you were looking forward to the rains, we might have rains today. Now also interesting, we do have cloudy weather starting off for the northwestern part of the country. We're looking at West Nile, areas of Arua. We're having a few clouds developing where you see the white colors right there. That is indicating cloudy conditions. Now that is helping to keep temperatures down. Otherwise, the rest of the northern sector seems to be really dry and temperatures are going up. This morning we could be looking at the lower 30s for northern Uganda. Karamoja region as well seems to be very dry, and also this morning satellites are indicating sunny weather over there. Same goes for eastern Uganda. We're talking about Amuria. We're seeing a little bit of cloudy weather starting off for this morning, but that will be clearing off as the day continues. We might still be talking about mostly dry and sunny weather for much of this morning across eastern Uganda. But we'll go ahead and take a look at the forecast, and also that is coming in from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority. We'll also look at the temperatures, how we are doing so far. We're looking at mostly dry and sunny days, meaning that the temperatures are also equally high, especially for eastern Uganda and northern Uganda. But the forecast is also indicating that is the central part of northern Uganda, where we have Gulu, Kitgum, Padel, and Adjumani. We're starting off at 32. That is quite high for this time of the year, and we're also looking at mostly starting off the day with sunny conditions. Now we do have southwestern Uganda, where we have Mbarara, Ibanda, Bushenyi, and Rubirizi. We are forecasting isolated rains. We already have the rainy system over the area that will be coming in over a few places though, and also starting off warm at 28 degrees. Now we're looking at that is Mount Elgon Highlands, where we have Mbale, Buko, Bududa, Sironko. We're forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine for this morning, and also temperatures are quite up at 29 degrees. That is going to feel quite warm as we expect similar weather even in the afternoon. Now we're looking at that is the western side of Lake Victoria, Masaka, Kalisizo, Zimbabwe, and Rakai. We are forecasting isolated rains. That is also already headed your way. We're looking at a warm morning at 28 degrees centigrade. Most likely that system will cross over into the afternoon. We could be seeing more rains come through even later in the day. Now we're looking at the eastern side of Lake Victoria, Tororo, Busia, Iganga, and Jinja. Also likely to have rains for this morning. We already have clouds building up over the area, but it's going to be a warm morning for you. Take a look at that 31, meaning that even then we're still going to have warm weather, and we could be looking at a similar situation even in the afternoon, because most of those rainy conditions will be clearing off as we head towards the afternoon. Now we look at eastern Uganda, Soroti, Katakwi, Amuria, and Kumi. We're looking at mostly a sunny morning over there, and also quite hot at 32 degrees. That will only get more and more hotter in the afternoon. We do expect that we will continue with sunny weather. Now that is one hot area you might want to actually be aware of. We also have the eastern side of Lake Victoria, that is the eastern side of Central, Ruwero, Woblenzi, Bururi and Nakaseke. We do have isolated showers in the forecast. Those will be quite light rains over several places, also starting off quite hot. That is at 31 degrees centigrade. Now the central parts of Lake Victoria Basin, Kampala, Entebbe, Wakiso, Mukono, we also have rains in the forecast. Those are expected to come through later as the day progresses, starting off warm at 27 degrees centigrade. Now, as we continue with mostly a dry season, we're talking about still a period of January to February. We're looking at more and more temperatures getting up, and we're still dealing with dry weather across most areas. Now, mostly we could be looking at that is a forecast for March to May, indicating that that is when we expect some rains to kick through. But what we do know so far is that the predictions that were given out by the regional center are looking at possibly another failed rainy season that we could be looking at, but we're yet to determine that. And of course, they're also relating it to the climate variability across East Africa, where we're looking at failed rainy season. So far, this would be the 60th time that we're looking at a failed rainy season, but we're yet to see what actually March and May have. And talking about climate variability, a lot of companies or investors are now looking at the way to fight the crisis on their end. And just recently, we did have fashion industry come on board. That is talking about COP27, but there were also a huge part of that is Glasgow Pact, which was the COP in the UK. Now, yesterday they did meet up to also put out their targets for this year and moving forward for their ambitions for before 2030. And we did see big names come on board. They have pledged that they will work closely with the farmers directly, that is in terms of cotton production, but also the textile industries, and look at how they can cut down emissions to net zero. Now, this is good news. We also have a lot of companies coming on board. Puma has been a huge part of that. We also have Nike that has now joined the queue, and in a joint report that came out yesterday, they're looking at the fashion industry charter for climate action that was started way back, but now in the charter they're bringing in more names in fashion to make sure that they are also very much involved in making sure they have less emissions into the atmosphere. And of course that starts at the production state. But also when they're involved with the farmers, it means that now they can actually help fund some of the practices that are good for making sure that with agriculture we then do not get into emissions as well. But also from that step you move into the textile industries where the clothing is being produced, where the shoes are being produced. How are they making sure that they are not putting more emissions into the atmosphere? And that is what they are all about. That was a meeting that was held yesterday, and they're looking at making much more of those collaborations, even with the UNFCCC. Now, the Fashion Charter also did set up support for the UN climate change. That was according to the pathway for the industry to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. Now, in line with the global efforts, they're also looking at how they can limit warming, of course, well below 2 degrees Celsius. That was a target that was set way back in 2015, but now we're seeing much more inceptions coming on board, and the charter has seen progress in the industry-wide climate ambitions. That, of course, includes now directly working with the farmers and the textile industries, but also we did see groups like Adidas. Adidas also came on board and was included in the meetings that were held yesterday. We did have the Burberry that also came on board. H&M Group has also joined the charter, and they're looking at how they can now put their targets towards that. And of course, that will be much more into putting them on the A list of companies that have joined the whole entire group on how they can deal with that is cutting emissions. But also talking about investments and funding for climate action, we do know that companies, especially banks, have been called upon ever since we went to Egypt on how they can deal with funding non-renewable energy. Now, we did see Barclays also yesterday coming out to announce that is Barclays UK, that they have stopped funding for coal production. And this is very good news, looking at how far we've gone in terms of banks giving out money to fund most of these productions. Now, Barclays UK did say that they will not be lending money to some of these companies that use fossil fuels. And of course, this comes after they also submitted in their ambitions towards Climate Action 2030. 2030. Now, the British Bank extended a previously announced plan to phase out financing for clients involved in coal-fired power generation by 2030, and of course they also include other countries that have joined the same line of work in organizing economic cooperation and development when it comes to use of fossil fuels. Now, globally, banks have been dealing with the plans to cut emissions, especially that is being involved with the UN Framework Convention. But now this is a huge step. We're looking at environmental campaigners that have been accusing most of these banks for being at the forefront of putting money into fossil fuels. But now this is a big step, and they could be looking at cutting out that. Now, these also announcements come after some of the previous banks also did state their ambitions towards that. We did have Standard Chartered coming in even at most of these corps, saying that they are also likely to be phasing out their funding and direct funding for most of these oil and gas fields, and we could be looking at more joining the queue. Now, we're looking at emissions being cut at least by 40%. If we have all banks on board cutting their support and funding, we could be looking at a 40% cut in emissions by 2050, and that would be a huge deal, meaning that we're closer to attaining our target in terms of having temperatures well below 2 degrees centigrade by the end of this century. Well, that is it that we have for you in terms of weather for this morning. We will be having a live broadcast for the celebrations in Janandu Mudel. UBC will be bringing you that. And of course, we do have Jordan Lukoma on ground. Will be taking us through much of what is happening at the event. My name is Molin Kenyene. I want to wish you a wonderful day.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Certainly it would have made his famous father proud. And the 18-year-old Gambian left foot on the left foot. Oh my
Get the most affordable 4G smartphone in Uganda from Airtel. Now heavily discounted 250,000 shillings to 150,000 shillings only. Yes, 150,000 shillings only to keep you connected to your loved ones.
To activate free option instantly and 100% double data on all way through and all Uganda for 3 months. Get one today, stop prices, and the rest Airtel shop with Airtel, the powerful network. Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Get away with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transactions. Dial star 165 star 5 star 3 hash to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Certainly it would have made his famous father proud. And the 18-year-old Gambian left foot on the left foot. Oh! Oh my God! The penalty area. That is sensational. The Tunisian defence have been caught out, caught cold. It's a brilliant little.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning and thank you for being with us on this day, which happens to be a public holiday. In case you're home and you've just woken up, well, today it is a public holiday. It is Janan Lumu Day, and UBC will be giving you later events as they unfold in Kitgum district, where we're having the main celebrations and a number of government dignitaries, people from the religious arena, the Inter-Religious Council of Uganda, and other dignitaries are converging to celebrate his life and, of course, reflect on his role in ensuring that he condemned the wrong and stood up for what is right. Well, so much has been said, and later we'll be giving you a live feed from there, and of course how all things will unfold. So in case you've missed going to Kitgum district for those celebrations, well, UBC TV is there for you, and you'll be able to follow each and everything because we'll give it to you live as it unfolds. It is Good Morning Uganda agenda. This is a segment where we usually have a guest and we discuss issues of national concern. I'm Robert Chirabo Nyonyi Ntono. Now today I want to look at something that is a violation of human rights, but on an increase, and that is the act of mob justice. Earlier on, our colleague Molen Kenyana was talking about hit and run accidents. And one will tell you we've had a number of people who have been lynched because he knocked somebody and he stopped, either to find how best they can help that person. By the end of the day, they discover that it was a mistake and regrettable. They are beaten, their cars are spoiled. Some decide to run for the sake of their lives. But unfortunately, as they are running, they're also being followed by border, and the situation is very confusing. We've had those that are accused or suspected of stealing. Some borders, others animals, goats, cows, others mobile phones. Some it could even be misinformation or mistaken identity. But these people tend to lose lives or injured severely. Now, joining me on set is the Commissioner Community Policing, Uganda Police Force, Anatoli Moletera. Good morning, Afand Anatoli.
My brother, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Once again, I've taken a while without seeing you. Can I say Happy New Year even if it has been taken by other events?
Happy Valentine's.
Happy Valentine was also there. You know, somehow I did not participate in it, so I didn't know whether it took place. Otherwise, happy Janan Lom Celebration Day to all Ugandans all out there. And happy being here. Robert, what makes you look terrific?
Well, I find my peace in the Lord.
Oh, great. I hope you are aspiring to be one of these saints that we shall be soon celebrating.
Well, that depends, because I don't want to go much into that, today being a special day in that area, but maybe it will be a talk we shall have offset, the two of us. But when we talk about mob justice, Afandana told Muletera, one would say these are problems that are happening in community. And one would say either it is people not understanding the law. But to begin with, let's understand how grave is this problem in our country today.
You know, the word justice means just and fair. That something that is being done is done in the right and proper way, and therefore it will lead to a fair decision or action. There are 3 levels at which justice can be administered. But the most important, the most recognized as of now in Uganda is the formal justice system, which I will be able to dwell on later on. But as of now, we can look at justice in three ways. One, when you go in places of worship and you get a fair hearing between you and your intercessor, who may be a presiding priest, and you think you have been relieved of the anguish, of the anger, of the fear, you think that is justice in your own way. The other way is the traditional way, where partly the system in which we follow, whether recognized or not, people tend to follow.
The likes of Matoput.
The likes of Matoput, yes. It is recognized in that cultural setting. Even here in Uganda, there are issues related to cultural norms, rights, rituals, yes. Ono agenze kutaka ly'ekika, ono simanya azadde omwana ne mwana munne, ono atyobodde ennono z'ekika kye. That way,
ono agobeddwa mu kika.
Yes. That is in one way addressing the issue of justice. But like I said, the most recognized as of now in Uganda is what I can refer to as the formal justice system. When I talk of the formal justice system, that is where one who is aggrieved, whether as an individual or a party or a community, desire to follow a formal procedure of instituting a case against one who could have violated what they think or who could have aggrieved them. By way of going to court, you go to court. If you don't go to court, you first start with the police. Then the police prepares for you the file through investigations, through gathering of evidence, through gathering of exhibits, and upon which it will be incumbent on the police to carry that file up to the DPP, who later on sanction the file, and then it is taken to court. So while you are there, that is a formal way. And that is one way of addressing criminal matters. You know, when we talk about criminal matters, we are referring to matters of the state. You have offended somebody by beating him, by stealing him, by killing him. That is a matter of the state. And therefore, it is addressed in a criminal way. But the other way is civil. You want compensation. this one he has a debt with me, this one has not paid me, this one has, you want you want interest on whatever you'd have spent. So that is the commercial way. And all of those address the issue of justice. Now, besides that normal and recognized way, the issue that Robert and maybe all of you there out in the community are posing is not justice. Yes. Because if you don't follow those procedures, if you don't follow those ways, it is not justice. Now, the issue that Robert wishes me to address with you is called mob action.
So you remove the word justice because it's not justice in any way.
No, justice would imply two very important words, just and fair. Now, if somebody is killed as an act of people taking the law in their hands, where would be the fairness of those who took the law in their hands? Where would be the fairness, or where would be who would have constituted a court, who would have presided a court, who would have been a witness in that matter?
Who would have investigated?
Yes, who would have investigated that matter?
Because even in court, someone is assumed or presumed innocent until proven guilty by a competent court.
And that is a very, very important presumption in the administration of justice. When you are addressing the issue of justice, it's not a matter of looking at somebody, this is Robert, he looks this way, he looks, he have eaten this, therefore he's a thief. No. And that is the wrong which many of our members of the community or some of our members of the community tend to commit. Upon hearing that somebody is a suspect, they even don't address him as a suspect. And therefore, by the way, you are violating his or her right. Even when somebody is caught in an act of wrong or an act of criminality or in an offense, according to the law, according to our formal justice system, such a person is presumed a suspect and innocent until proved so by a court of competent jurisdiction. Now, in the constitute of mob action, where we do not have the four parties, the one presiding over, maybe is a chairman, is a judge, is a magistrate, where we don't see that. Two, where we don't see a clear complainant, but we are only seeing a suspect who in turn becomes a victim of mob action, because later on he's either beaten and maimed, either burnt to death, or blatantly stoned and killed. Like the acts of the Uganda matters. Those were acts of injustice or acts of mob action where there were no clear trials, but on suspicion that somebody said, I am professing this. So, why talk now about this issue? We are seeing so many people being driven by four factors. One is anguish. You know, people, anger is just within, that if on hearing that this one is a suspect, they don't give him or her a fair hearing. There and then. Two, hatred. Hatred among some communities is on the increase. There is no tolerance, no respect of human rights in diversity. Fellow Ugandans, you know, you got some communities where they think that if you are of a certain tribe, you are of a less value than them. And therefore, one, you are not entitled to own property, You are not entitled to marry amongst them. You are not entitled to settle there. But they welcome you upon seeing that you have some money. And when you have some money and they see maybe you are prospering in business, they turn wild against you and want to chase you away. 3, ignorance. Some section of the public think that the easiest way to administer what they refer to as justice is instant. But you see, what happens is that when some of these people have acted in that way, some of them feel shy and they feel very insecure, and that's why they run away after maybe killing somebody, because they have realized that indeed what they did was not within their human whatever. Then, you know, lastly is that people fail to love one another.
Well,
maybe before you enter, you interject. Sometimes I don't want also to talk for the community, but even those who are the victims sometimes, some of them become hardcore. That they have talked to them several times and they have continued to be very, very unrepentant. And partly, lastly, and very important, is the failure to understand the criminal justice system, how the justice system works. You see, the problem is that many people who tend to come to police to complain, they think that when they come to police, police will address their complaint instantly. But at the end of it all, first of all, when they come, they want compensation immediately. Not knowing that it is not within the police's reach, mandate, to direct the victim or suspect to compensate for you. So that kind of what I could call a quagmiric situation confuses people, and at the end of it all, we see this happening.
Now, one of the 4 I was waiting to hear from you is the public puts this increase on you men in that uniform, the Uganda Police Force. Many of these cases, they'll tell you that, well, if you took this person to police, I condemn in the strongest terms these extrajudicial killings. I condemn mob action in the strongest terms. Because I want to tell you, fellow Ugandans, anyone is a victim of mob justice. Anyone is a victim of mob justice. I've ever seen an army spokesperson being beaten out of a mob because they were upset. I've ever seen high-profile people in this country being lynched by a mob, vehicles burnt. So anyone is a potential victim of mob justice. No one is safe at any one point if we do not condemn this evil and stop it. But sometimes people say they're acting out of frustration. You have an habitual thief in the community. Get him, arrest him, take him to police. The next day is there. A person knocks somebody to death. Police comes, protects this person. Other complications. The next they will see as they are burying this one, the other one is cruising on the same streets. Also, they have said, we get this thief, police very quickly arrives at the scene, picks this person, even goes for treatment. Those may be when they were carrying out their mission, maybe they injured people, they stabbed people, they killed people. Police rescues this person. And within a few days or months, it's still the same person in the village. That mob justice has increased because of the unprofessional manner, or corruption, or intentional frustration, of the communities is why they tend to believe that let them take the law in their hands, which again I want to emphasize I condemn in the strongest terms. Is the problem here, Anatoly?
Now, Robert, no level of exposure at an individual or human level, no level of education, no level of human race can override the human weakness inborn in individuals. And that's why to Christians, even when Jesus was preaching and he was healing and he was fearless. You remember when they were on Lake Galilee and the storm came, his disciples were very fearful, very scared, very terrified. And he asked them, where is your faith? Calm down. And eventually the storm calmed down. But remember, at the time of trial, when he was on the cross, he broke down. He broke down. The human weakness in him was exposed, the fear. And therefore, it is inborn in all of us to be fearful, sometimes to be taken by our own emotions. And which emotions most times even override our professionalism. I am telling you, if all of us were to be exposed in our private life, then those that we fear, then those that we respect, we would know that we are all very useless. And that's why you see, when there was genocide in Rwanda, and in those countries where genocide was meted, even in South Africa, you could not imagine that men of God in Kasok would also participate because they preach love, but because of the human weakness in them. That said, it is not a standard practice for the Uganda police to tolerate acts of mob justice or acts of mob action. But sometimes, by virtue of our weaknesses, some of these things happen. I may not even be surprised because, let me tell you, you even find some of our men in uniform on suspicion that his wife is going out with another man. He goes and withdraws a gun and draws a gun and comes and he shoots as the person who is suspected. Is it because of the profession? No. The human weaknesses, emotion prevailing over.
Tactfully, you seem to be dodging my question.
No, I'm not dodging. It is your
because
desire
it was open and clear. The public is attributing police frustration to why they are participating in mob justice. That one. When they report to police, this is what happens. The way these cases are handled, they find that the same people that are in and out, too, lack of faith in police to effectively handle these cases, that they find it frustrating, so they rather deal away with such characters and know that the habitual thief, the one who has stolen cattle on the village, this car we've reported to police several times. We have a car number plate. This comes and steals goats. When police comes, they take them. 3 months they are back doing the same. So they say, no, let's rather eliminate this. You know, and what happens thereafter? You didn't take enough effort, Anatoly. These are situations we've seen, to hunt for these thieves. But police can take enough effort even to arrest an entire village In my language, they call it okulira kunsiko. And you find the entire community, they are no longer sleeping in their houses. Police is hunting for those that participated in mob justice and killed suspected cattle thieves. Yet police did not bring the same force to hunt for these very thieves.
You know, I didn't know that you are a Pharisee or one of these zealots. You know, when Jesus was preaching and they asked him, which is the greatest law? And one of the Pharisees told Jesus, for us we had 632, but for you, you are telling us one law. Jesus told them that it was because you are hard to understand. And you seem to be in that boat. At my preamble of my talk to you, I told you we have 3 levels of the administration of justice. The traditional one is instant. It is instant. Instant. You get the chairman, you get the elders, you get the victim, you get the aggrieved, you get the community. It is instant. For example, there is a story among the Choli, which I learned. A young man wanted to marry. Last year, he wanted to marry. And he went to his father-in-law for introduction. The father-in-law told him he wanted 30 million shillings, 30 heads of cattle. This young man realized he loved so much his wife. But how could he really be denied? Yet he doesn't have the resources to marry. What did he do? He went to the council of elders. The council of elders decided instantly. They told him, go and bring 5 cows, 2 million shillings, take your wife. And it was agreed. That is an instant. And therefore it was there were, even the father who had made the earlier decision did not even challenge it because it had come. Now, that is one way. But I've told you, when people come to police, our police system is procedural. And that's why I've told you it is called the criminal justice system. The police is an entry point, just like when you know you are entering the educational system. Would you want to claim that you have completed studies when you are in P1? I mean in primary?
Definitely not.
No! You only qualify to be what you are as long as you have reached maybe tertiary institution, and therefore you have got that paper. Our criminal justice system, the police is the primary one. It deals with investigations, arrests, gathering of evidence, and taking the file to court. Now, whatever decision is reached at, that is another arm of government. Secondly, I have told our listeners from my start that in our criminal justice system, we do not assume that the person who has been brought to police is a criminal. No, he is presumed to be innocent until proved so, and therefore he is entitled to be called a suspect. The name of a person you have arrested there and brought to police is called a suspect, not a criminal. 3, if the case he has committed, say like for example the issue of theft of a cow, and you see to it that one, he has sureties, what we call substantive sureties. You know, when somebody like, who is called substantive, that is a person with a clear job description, a clear home, a registered citizen of this country, a person with a position in a community, LOC 1, LOC 2. Even you, for example, I am always with you. Who will have a benefit of doubt in you? I mean, who will doubt you? If you come to police and say, I am standing, they know you as a host always on Good Morning Uganda. So if you match police and say, I want to stand surety for Mleterwa, you'll be given that benefit. Therefore, when you are given that benefit, the community there will have that presumption, and which I want us to please, let's get it from our mindset. Some of them come out and say, Omugaga Dasiwa, Mugaga, when you even see the one called Mugaga, he even doesn't have shoes, he doesn't have clothes, but he's called Mugaga. Mo Mugaga Rasiwa, Era Mbawade. Definitely, this in essence fails our people to understand what the criminal justice system is for. However, that said, we may have some wrong apples within the basket.
And I love that, because that's what I was going to. Don't you think you're hiding these guys of procedure?
But let me ask
justice?
you, do you mean to say for you, we are the bad apples, for you are saints there? Where are the saints amongst you there? If you are saints, why don't you go to heaven?
We still have life to live.
Go to heaven. You know, on us we are not looking for saints. On us we are looking for people who are law abiding.
Anatoly, I want to put this to you.
In heaven we want saints. You go there.
I want to put this to you. I've spent a long time of my time in practice dealing with police, criminal justice system. But how best do you explain a situation? I know there are people who getting police bond is very hard, yet they could even be minor offenders. But I know of habitual criminals who just move in and out. So I know people, you go to a police cell and you find they'll tell this person has spent 7 days here, and you'll even wonder. Then there are those who will come, enter and go. So police bond is one of the areas that really taints the image, or police officers are using it as a way of letting criminals, some bad apples like you said. So how do we, because the public there, these people, they may look villagers or what, but they follow events and wonder. If we know, because you'll find that most of the people, say in rural areas, where we see mob action happen, they have a storyline. They will tell you this month, that month, this month, that, in, out, in, out. So how best do you justify that because you have a potential surety, because of this? But how is it, yet other cases, people getting police bond is not an easy thing, much as it is free. Fellow Ugandans will allude to this. Some even pay by police bond. But how do these, we know, you know what, Fere, you've heard of those guys? He steals money craftily but they just move in and out. And when someone gets, when community understand that this is the very person to move, how do you best explain that to the public?
Now, Robert, like all those, you know, in customer care, we have categories of people. We have four categories of people in customer care. We have the normal, we have the hardy people, we have definitely those that you talk to and really understand. I am seeing a scenario in our community where most Ugandans are becoming hardy people. And they do it deliberately. They deliberately desire not to become people who want to listen and be guided. I know what you are talking is not your own reflection of the mind, but is a reflection of what Ugandans perceive about police. I want to make this candid, and if somebody in the production room can help me, let him or her type there the word police bond is free, so that it is very bold and you can use me, but for me, I'm also quoting the authority of the organization for which I work. It is a policy and must be a practice. But, you know, let me tell you, Bana Robert, day in, day out, we urge Ugandans that if you think you are entitled to a police bond, and especially your suspect, your relative, is in custody with the police, in custody of police, go and meet 3 categories of people at the police who are supposed to administer for you the police bond. 1, the OC station. 2, the DPC. 3, the OCCID. Either of those 3 persons are supposed to administer for you a police bond. Why? They are the commanders of a police district, of a police station, for that matter. But all of that said, who doesn't know the practice that many of you desire to be brokers at the police? Brokers. Kayungirizi. Now let me ask you, Robert, and those listening and viewing, are brokers part of the police? Have you ever heard me talk about that we have brokers for police bond, or even not police bond, but police services? Aren't they part of you? And the worst is that some of them are even your own relatives. They even begin creating or painting pictures. Ha! Oyo musajja asoboka. Osobola okugendayo? Aha! Soko iteka sawa. Gende mukolo. Tukagaba. Then otuke ku lusozi n'alya. Owulidde? Kasawo. Mukolo. Gaba. N'alya. These are the slogans for which they use when extorting money from. Two, and which I want, this is personal. My also experience is about my own, some of my police officers. When they know they are supposed to provide such services, some of them beginning. Kati awo okkiriza mangu, biri byenjogedde tobisobola kubikkiriza.
Abirimbi manyi biri mu bitabo, tebiri practical.
Nti tulina ba brokers ku police ekyo kiri mu kitabo.
Police bond is free.
Yes, ba brokers betwogerako bwaki mu batuleetera. We have arrested many of them. But they in society continues to produce many of them also again. Why? So please, we do not want brokers at the police. Two, you policemen, the category I've talked about, please be available, be accessible for our police services to be enjoyed.
I love the word you've used, available. Some you even see them in the office, but he seems busy for nothing.
No, please.
Keep there, please wait.
But
the big man, wait.
Let me tell you, amagezi g'abafere bazibu. At one time, I got a man. He had even extorted some money, and he came to my office. He said, "Afande wasuzuti. Mwibale tusimanye bye mukola. Bakwogerako birungi byerere." Now, to me, he left
me. No Zimba.
Then, natema. Kumbe, mukuyingira kwange. Alesewa na abadu. He has left some people outside. He came just to cause courtesy. Then, he said, Temundabi, msiji mazo kugira na hii. Chwede. Ete kuwa umuntu wa mazi. Na yinga umanyi. Uganda anzibu. You are the ones who are making Uganda anzibu. But our services are provided for free. But not all. Not all. And I want to be clear to this. Let me tell our listeners. What are the services that we provide for free? One, police board. Two, canine. Canine. Dog services. Three, fire. Fire. Four, medical forms. Medical forms, including the police bond forms.
You never have them, you have to get man and gun photocopy.
That is you.
Or buy them from someone within the police.
Those are some of the weaknesses within our own setting, but it's not the same.
In fact, one time I asked a police officer, doesn't government provide the paper to photocopy?
Those are weaknesses within our own setting, but not the system. And we want to glorify that. No. Because those services are for free. Medical tests, medical examinations, especially sex, gender-based violence, sex-related offenses.
So the police surgeon there is free of charge?
Yes. So when you go and you want it, please go and face the OCCID. He will know how to procure those services for you.
Okay.
Those are the services that are for free.
Then arrests.
It is for free. If you pay at your own inconvenience. But at the same time, don't come here, wait for me on the program of Good Morning Uganda and say, people are charging me money. I have
To go and
given you
arrest somebody,
categories
yes.
of cases. And if there is any policeman who asks you for money for those services, ask him for a receipt. Let me give you a receipt. Is he, this man whom you have talked about, and whom you have talked to, is he the alpha and omega of the police? No. Now, what are the police services that are paid for? Ladies and gentlemen out there, one, you want a small firearm. Bino bye mukwata amabondo gamane muzimba zimba. Mugenda ku party, mwagala kwe mulisa. Sebe mundu eyo oyina okugisasulira naye wano njagala kukiza buli kaseera oyagala kwekwatakwata ng'atambula n'ensekere tomanyi oba mutambula nazo but because this is very important, Robert, in the case you want a private firearm, it's not automatic that you can get it. This is an off topic, but I think can't you say
briefly, time is running.
You had me some more time. That Lauben can as well sit there.
That old man.
Is that old phone? Let him be there. Now, the private firearm, the procedures for getting it. One, you must be above 21 years, definitely, and a Ugandan of a reputable background. Two, you must have a source of income of more than 100 million shillings. Three, you must be a Ugandan of sane, sound mind. Not one who is between Nakawa and Butabika or Luzira. The one who is insane. You're in between Nakawa, Butabika, Luzira. You can't get a gun. Four, you must not be a drunkard. Five, you must have all reasons convinced that indeed your life is under threat, and therefore the general safety and security provided by the police cannot be enough until augmented on by you having a private firearm.
Anatoly, time is not so much on our side. We have a live and of course we have sports updates. But let me just in a minute get your final remarks to Ugandans regarding how best we can reduce or eliminate or end mob action.
Follow what I've told you, but don't follow what your mind tells you. Happy Janan Loom Day celebrations to all Ugandans.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We hope to have you more, and of course we'll be discussing more pertinent issues regarding police and the community. It's been Anatoly Mletera, the community liaison, the commissioner in charge of community policing in the Uganda Police Force. Let's have Ruben take us through the world of sports. Good morning.